My name is Daniel Ziesmer, and I'm the president of Centripetum. We're a consulting company that specializes in providing small and medium enterprises with the tools and services that support cybersecurity efforts and those that improve a business's governance, risk management, and compliance, or also known as GRC operations. As an enterprise advisor, I specifically focus on helping you to think about your appetite for risk and make sound decisions based on sound risk strategies. Risks actually span across a lot of facets of a business, but when you're starting a new one, it can be really overwhelming to think about where the best use of your limited time, money, and resources should be focused. Cybersecurity is also an area that I'm frequently consulted about, not the least of which is because it's so often discussed in popular media, and of course, it's usually not with any good news attached. Protecting your digital assets is an important facet of running a business. Just like risk management in general, it's all about knowing what makes practical sense when you're just starting out. And different types of companies are going to have different types of needs. But for all those different types of companies, my goal is still to provide you with low cost, low effort pathways that protect your business in the early stages when robust cybersecurity is just not going to be an affordable option for you.
What insights and advice do you have for businesses at this time?
From our perspective, the most important thing you can do today is to reassess the assumptions on which your business model is based. That might seem extreme, but in the last few weeks, the organization I have spoken to have assumed that business will eventually just go back to normal. And that is simply not the case. The most important consideration right now is the needs and priorities of people and other businesses today are not the same as they were even just a few months ago, really even just a few weeks ago. And they'll probably be changing again and again and again. You know, in some instances, businesses are going to have to accept that daily customer intake is going to be 40, 60% of what it once was. And the likelihood of that really changing for years to come is actually pretty low. And that's even if a vaccine were to appear in the next, 12, 18 months. In fact, in a few cases, I've even seen business models that we've talked about that may not be viable or survive under the new normal. It's a difficult prospect to face, but it's something that everybody has to consider. And in those cases, we've even talked about exit strategies if that was necessary. The next most important thing that you can do is identify the maximum flexibility your business model is going to allow. Think about it. Just 6 weeks ago, we were talking to restaurants who said their business model simply would not make carry-out and delivery possible. And yet today, these same companies are surviving because somehow that impossibility was surmounted. 6 weeks ago, I was working with financial institutions who said they had to be able to meet with customers face-to-face, or they were going to have to just halt a bunch of their operations. And yet today, they figured out how to use their existing technologies to allow them to conduct business as usual. Now, don't get me wrong. There's going to be some solutions that are going to be cost prohibitive, or it's going to require that business to take really big changes to how they do business. But a lot of times you just need to think at new angles to what it is you're trying to provide your customer and really think about what it is they want or need and how you can satisfy that. Thirdly, I'd argue that you need to mentally prepare for what is going to be constantly shifting government directives. A lot of people right now are just looking for everything to, quote, reopen. But all the models that we have about the virus are generalized, which means they can't predict outbreaks that are going to inevitably occur. This also means then that restrictions over the next at least year are going to increase and decrease and increase and decrease back and forth over time and geography, depending on infection trends. Just because larger groupings are allowed this week doesn't mean they're going to be allowed the next. Then maybe they'll be allowed the week after that, but not the week after that. What this all really means is you need to be prepared to adapt quickly and not get frustrated. It's not anybody's fault. It's just a new normal.
What tips or strategies are important for businesses to implement?
From our perspective, the first best strategy is to really think about redundancy in all aspects of our operations. In other words, how can you have a backup plan for everything that you do? Now, the reason for this is because we need to realize that COVID and these types of impacts are impacting everyone. So when we're talking about redundancy, you need to be thinking about the suppliers you use, the employees you rely on. By the way, for you, those of you who are starting the business yourself, this includes yourself. So if you were to get sick, you need to figure out what do you do when you're not there. And even including redundancy to the types of customers that you cater to. Think about it. You may have people that were potential customers, but you really didn't appeal to them because they didn't generate as much revenue. But those same customers might be the customers that now help you keep your doors open. That being said, you need to write down every backup strategy, even if it's just one sentence for each idea to start out with. When you write things down, it helps you form a plan, helps you categorize and organize all of the considerations, and really helps you identify those aspects of your business that you never had a plan B for. Now, as an IT person, of course, I'm also going to emphasize those other kinds of backups. So, when we talk about cybersecurity, a lot of people think about, well, that's really related to defending against the bad guys. But that's not what cybersecurity is. Cybersecurity is really about the protection of your cyber or your computing assets for really anything that's unexpected. Do you know how to get a replacement computer if your computer fails? If the hard drive fails? Do you have the software available to reinstall? Do you back up your computer? It's amazing how often I talk to people who go, back up? Yeah, I've been meaning to do that. If you do back up, how often? If you back up weekly, can you afford to lose all of the work between what you did last week and this week? What about daily? And what about even hourly? We've all been there where we've spent hours working on something. What happens if you lose all that information? So do you have a backup strategy that really protects you against serious losses? Consider for a moment just the fact that in a few hours, depending on the type of business that you do, you could lose hundreds, even thousands of transactions. And that could be hundreds or thousands of customers that you could lose that fast. With that said, are your backups secure? How many of you are backing up to a portable hard drive that sits on a desk in the other room? If that house fire broke out, did your entire company just go up in smoke? Or can you really recover your company from somewhere else? I think you get the idea. Make sure that you really have all of your IT infrastructure ready to be replaced at a moment's notice.
What resources can businesses look to for support?
So there's a lot of things out there about COVID, about how to deal with customers, how to protect your customers, protect your employees. But from where we stand, again, as GRC consultants, I would really tell you to start with a risk management framework. It's also known as the RMF, and it was developed by the federal government as a comprehensive strategy for protecting information systems. Now, before I continue, I need to emphasize that the RMF for information systems is a little misleading. And that's because the federal government really realized early on just how reliant we are on our computers. Let's be honest. In most cases, whether it's you or me or small, medium, large business or the federal government, if our computers stop working, we can just pack it up and go home, right? So think about it. Even something as non-IT as a restaurant. You talk about waiters and waitresses and the chefs and the cooking and the food and everything else. There's one small problem. If their computers and credit card processing systems fail, and that's the way in which they accept most payments, most of their customers would just have to walk away. So when we talk about the RMF, we need to understand it is really addressing your enterprise as a whole. And that means that the RMF addresses a lot of non-IT stuff, ranging from safety equipment, personnel training, and even having pandemic responses if workers can't come into the office. Sound familiar? The RMF outlines a sound governance level strategy for handling all of your other risks in general too. So it's a really great resource. Look, In every business, there's going to be limited resources. And so risk management speaks to us about how we prioritize those resources across all of our competing interests. If we're really honest, COVID has just given us one new competing interest. But if we know under risk management and we do it well, we can embrace that new risk and shuffle it into the deck really without missing a beat. Besides, think about it. If you've managed your risk for, let's use the example of your building flooding and being unusable, you're probably going to find a lot of parallels to COVID about dealing with customers and not having an office. I get it. There's a lot of people who are worried. There's a lot of people who are scared. And there's a lot of things to be worried and scared about. But if you learn how to manage risks in general, you're going to find that you have a strong platform for dealing with the COVID crisis, for dealing with any ongoing business change, cybersecurity threats, and really whatever else comes your way. Taking risks is part of being an entrepreneur, but you still have to know how to manage them. And keep in mind that these kinds of challenges are really just a normal part of doing business. If it isn't a pandemic, then next time it'll be a political skirmish, it'll be a war, an earthquake, a supplier who goes suddenly out of business, a cargo ship that sinks with all of your inventory, an angry employee who takes to the internet and decides they're going to go after your business, a computer virus that starts deleting your data, a mischievous cat who thinks your computer would look better on the floor than there. Challenges can and will upend your business, and that comes from anything from the mundane to the horrific and really everything in between. You need to just take a deep breath and remember that the only thing you can count on is change. After all, if change didn't occur, entrepreneurship would either be a whole lot more difficult than it already is, or a whole lot more boring. Good luck.
This video was brought to you by the New Mexico Economic Development Department, Office of Science and Technology. Discover more resources to support your business at arrowheadcenter.nmsu.edu.